Hello, everyone. My name is Anjoroge. I'm part of the design team at Africa Stocking, where I work as a UX researcher and designer. Our overarching goal in the design team is to ensure that we give superior experiences for the products and our customer. And that is for the different products that we have in place. That is SMS, USSD, airtime, IoT, voice, and the different projects that we usually, different ideas that we usually innovate in our incubation lab. Today, I'm going to talk about how designers can work in a more meaningful and progressive manner as they engage with the different stakeholders in building the products that they are building. The workflow is variable depending on the organization that you're in. You find for small and medium organizations, designers usually double up as the project managers or product owners. So there's a lot of responsibility in ensuring that the end-to-end, that the product is developed successfully end-to-end. And that's why you find that the dynamics of the relationship between the different stakeholders involved becomes a key determinant in the success of a product. To set us off, I have two case studies that had very interesting first iterations just because the different stakeholders were not coordinating accordingly. The first one is Kazoo. Kazoo is an idea that was incubated in the Africa Stocking Innovation Lab. And it's supposed to be, it is a security platform that offers OTP for authentication on mobile and web for fintechs. And the first iteration was not communicating the brand as it ought to have. You find that it had a tad more playfulness than it should. And because of that, when it launched, we had a hard time getting buy-in from the target market. So the second iteration was received in a better manner by the market. And we're glad that we're getting higher conversions and higher expressions of interest in the different markets where we have launched the product. The other case study that I have in place is Quill. Quill is an e-learning platform where students are mentored by their parents and mentors as they undertake different projects. In the first scenario, because it's the students who are very keen on building, they're super excited to just ship and go to market. And this is what we had for the first iteration. And unfortunately, as much as yes, we did have a product on the ground, we're having a hard time getting conversions. The kids were having a hard time going through the different modules that we had in place. And now we had to do the whole thing. And that is when we had this designed. This is still under development, but a few pages have been already executed, and we like the flow in the user experience because the kids are saying right now they're having an easier time going through the different modules that the e-learning platform has to offer. And they're also getting the kind of response, and they've managed to secure the attention of the target market that they had intended. That is people in Africa, a few Kenyans, and also in the States. So I'm going to share 3 strategies that I have seen work and I've adopted in my work processes just to ensure that all the stakeholders are coordinating nicely and are in sync from the get-go. The first one is reducing chaos. The second one is working to better your relationships. And thirdly is learning to speak the language as a product designer or manager. In reducing the chaos, I think this is where a lot of work goes in. They say that great design is a product of a lot of intelligence. So this is where you need to bring in everyone, ensure that every person is bringing in their strength. And first and foremost, your strength is supposed to get to ensure that the strategy is clearly defined, that the problem that you are solving is clearly outlined, and every stakeholder involved, from the product owners, product marketers, the engineers, everyone can articulate clearly the why of why you're doing what you're doing. Don't jump into building a solution if the problem is not well defined. Ensure that everyone is on board. Do your due diligence in getting the persona clearly cut out, and also the features as well. What are you building and why are you building? I remember there's a product we were building to support customer onboarding. It's called Cryon. We had to iterate that product close to 4 times, and it was a huge product. And it took us like 6 months to just have the first thing, like the first prototype on the ground. And a lot of resources, there's a lot of leakage of resources, both on the engineering side and on the design side of things. And just that, and the reason behind that, it's because we were not speaking the same language. We had not clearly defined the problem that we are solving and the features that we are going to build to support this. The other thing that you need to have in place is great documentation. This one goes a long way because it ensures that you're communicating the dreams and the purposes of the product to all the stakeholders in a unified manner. So your design system, it can be the style guides, the conceptual models, the component libraries, and the various use cases that you have in place. Ensure all of them are well written down and placed in a folder somewhere where the designers, the engineers, the product marketers can easily access. And this is also important because it goes a long way in securing the future of the product, so that when you have newbies being onboarded, it becomes very easy for them to come up to speed with the set systems for governance and to get to building, as opposed to starting to learn and waste time looking for resources that could have been easily made accessible if the people who started off did put in effort in just ensuring the documentation is well captured and filed. Lastly is make an effort to bring everyone on board. We are here to collaborate, and it's never too early to start working on that relationship. A superpower that all designers claim to have or claim to be working on over and over is being empathetic. So I would employ that you use that superpower as you are relating with the different stakeholders that you are working with. We're humans first. So put in effort in getting to understand the different personalities that you're working with. Most engineers, you find that they're more analytical, logic thinkers compared to an average designer, and that is well expected. So learn to empathize with where they're coming from, the different personality styles that we have in place, the phlegmatic, melancholic, sanguine, the thinking processes. I mean, as you're interacting with the different multidisciplinary teams that you find yourself in, put in an effort in learning the people just to avoid unnecessary friction, and it will also help you to draw out the best out of your teammates, which is what you want. You want to build an atmosphere where people can hear one another, because as a leader, you don't want to be surrounded with people who do not speak because no one is listening. And then at the same time, you want to build trust and an atmosphere where everyone feels valued and cared for, which will make your dreams and your work process as a designer very easy and smooth. So if that lunches to be attended to, evening parties, make a point in just showing up to water that and nurture that relationship with the various stakeholders that you are working with. At the same time, make a point of getting comfortable with conflict and disagreements, knowing when to push back, when to give a listening ear, when to be the mediator. It goes a long way if you can just put in a little bit more effort in knowing how you can be able to resolve conflicts of various nature or argue in a constructive manner with the engineers, without coming out as abrasive or, someone who doesn't, care about others. And a consideration you can work on as you are building your team is, as you're building the relationships in your team, is ensuring that you have smaller teams for the different projects that you are working on. This will help in making communication more efficient and reducing the communication feedback loop. When we started out in building Illyrian, we began this somewhere in Q2 of 2021. The whole design team and the engineering team was spread out. And this was taking a toll on all the engineers and the design and the designers. So you find that the development process was slowing down. So it got to a point where our management decided to divide the teams. So we had a team that was fully dedicated to Illyrian and another team fully dedicated to Africa stocking. And when that was done, the development process sped up. And by the end of the year, we were able to launch Illyrian, which is a new product by Africa Stocking. And we still have dedicated teams just for the different products. It helps in hastening the process of building and making communication more efficient across board. Also, as you're working to build and establish that relationship, ensure that you have a working rhythm. And when you are looking at having a working rhythm is establishing on how you're going to manage the various expectations on the ground. You have design work. When and how do you expect it to be shared? What design decisions need to be made first? You need to understand what's reversible and what's not reversible, and also have it on paper. How often do you want to review the milestones that you have in place? You find as a designer, as you're working with engineers, you need to communicate effectively the different designs that you have in place. So if the engineers want user flows, if they want prototypes, the different interaction patterns that are required, ensure that is well communicated and agreed upon, depending also on the software that you're working with. Because if you're working with Figma or Adobe, you're going to have different, you'll need to have different platforms and different channels of communicating that and also storing that. So that needs to be agreed early on. And then, just get to know, how's the handover going to be done from one team to another. Yeah. And then lastly is learning to speak the language. I come from a background of chemistry and biology. So before I came into tech 3 years back, so I really had to, it was a steep learning curve, but I had to put in effort because I realized it does go a long way if you put in effort in just getting to understand the craft and the technical requirements, the jargon in place. Because as you're designing, you need to have, a deeper understanding of the different features that you are suggesting or you're building on the front end and on the back end. What is the estimation, how much resources are required in building what you are proposing? What are the technical constraints in place? That understanding is very pivotal because it helps you with being able to manage expectations across the different stakeholders that you're working with, the product owners and also the engineering team. So there's very little friction as you're working. And as at Africa Stocking, we usually have sprints. We work with sprints for the different projects and products that we are working with. So for the design team, usually have a weekly catch up. And then for the different products or projects that each and every designer is assigned, you find that they're usually weekly catch-up sessions and bi-weekly catch-up sessions, just to be able to ensure everyone is in sync and there's progress as we're working together. So from the three things that I have mentioned today, reducing chaos, working to better your relationship with the various stakeholders, and speaking the language, the tech language in your respective industry. I hope there's one that you can pick and employ right away to be able to upgrade your relationship with the various stakeholders and engage in a more progressive manner. Thank you.